Listen, as you just mentioned, breaking news here on House of Champions, our very own Fabrizio Romano reporting that Jesse Marsch has been fired by Leeds United. He is gone. And yeah, very interesting news this morning. The news this morning breaking about Manchester City financial fair play irregularities and getting fined by the Premier League. Now breaking news about Jesse Marsch. It is a very strange weekend. Let's just touch upon that a little bit more. I mean, obviously, we would like to go through all the results, but I think this is just massive news. We got to touch upon it.
Yeah.
What next for Jesse Marsch if it's not the national team, Mike? If it is the national team, fair play. But if it's not the national team, where does he go from here? I mean, Jesse Marsch has been in Austria. He's been in the Bundesliga. He's now been in the Premier League. Hasn't worked out. Hasn't worked out for him in Europe whatsoever. Could Major League Soccer be an answer? Could it be only the US national team as a way to go forward for Jesse Marsch? Breaking news again, as Fabrizio Romano just reported, Jesse Marsch fired. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's down to the ambition of Jesse. It's a very ambitious move for him to have left the Red Bull job where he was very successful, left in the middle of the season to go to Austria to take the Salzburg job, and then obviously go to the Bundesliga. Jesse is a very ambitious and very driven individual. You and I know him very well. And I think that if he was to come back stateside, it would be to the U.S. men's national team. I do not know, and I do not think that it's time for him to come back to MLS yet. If he decides to come back to Major League Soccer, though, there isn't a club that wouldn't jump at the chance to get a proven winner in this league, to get a coach who has had success in Europe, maybe not as of late, but has had success in Europe, has had results in the Champions League, to come back to the league here in America. But I think that he's probably going to end up with the U.S. men's national team if he comes back stateside.
I've got a question actually for Ian, and this is a managerial dismissal that's sort of flown under the radar because obviously we don't talk as much about the Bundesliga here as we do other leagues, but Hoffenheim parted company with their coach at the start of this week. Now I'm wondering, the assumption would be that Jesse Marsch, USMNT, would be the best fit. But how high was his stock after leaving Leipzig? Whether he might get given another chance in the Bundesliga. Perhaps Hoffenheim could be a good immediate landing spot because the Bundesliga is a league which tends to generally recycle a lot of the same managers over and over. But Hoffenheim are one of those clubs that's kind of more modern in their way of thinking, and maybe they jump at the opportunity to speak to at least have the discussion with somebody like a Jesse Marsch.
Well, Jesse didn't have much time, if you remember, in the Bundesliga as a head coach. He was an assistant for a long time at Leipzig before he did take the job at Salzburg, where he had almost 100 games. But I think he only had about 20 games in the Bundesliga as the boss of Leipzig, which is certainly not enough time to prove yourself. He's clearly well thought of when it comes to his coaching style and certainly the Red Bull system. And they gave him opportunity, but to jump to Leeds United was a big gamble as far as I'm concerned, because you either make it work, especially after replacing a Bielsa, and it's going to be a massive success and everybody's going to love him at Leeds United, or this happens. You get fired very quickly for inconsistent results. Now, saving a club is one thing. That's a tremendous achievement. But when you actually get to a stage where they now demand that you try to get into the top half of the table, that's another thing, trying to achieve that with a Leeds United. With Leipzig, I don't think he was given a fair shot, my personal opinion. I think he was, not hiding my words here, I think he was shit on pretty quickly. They managed to push him out the door very quickly because the results weren't there and they weren't willing to give him time to try and get it right at Leipzig. And okay, the results weren't fantastic, but his style of play was interesting, and his decision-making with certain players was also interesting, which led to the reason why he was fired. Now, Hoffenheim, as you've mentioned, just fired André Breitenreiter, and they do have a lot of money as well. And they are a club with great history as far as bringing players through and giving young coaches an opportunity and young coaches a chance. So maybe they have someone already in their system that they're thinking about, or maybe they try something completely new and different. Now, when I say tradition, obviously Hoffenheim is a club that was bought, a lot of money being spent into it, similar to what we see with Leipzig, where you don't normally see this in Germany. It's not like owned by the supporters and where they make all decisions. It's not. It is an ownership group and an owner who in particular is wanting, they want success. I think Jesse could be a very good fit in the Bundesliga, but my personal preference for him right now would be the national team. I don't see anybody else. Like, if I'm thinking now, who would be the correct former foreigner to come in and coach this national team? I couldn't tell you one. I'd love to say Zidane. I'd love to say Bielsa. I'd love to say all these great names. But none of them, in my personal opinion, could do a better job than what Jesse Marsch could do with the national team. And he's already made it publicly clear that he wants that job. And I wouldn't be surprised that if you look at what's happening with Greg Berhalter, that the US national team have been waiting patiently to announce who's going to be their next boss, wondering whether or not Jesse was going to be able to hang on to his job. I wonder if they were actually waiting for this kind of news and now probably licking their lips, because right now there is a lot of change that has taken place at US Soccer. There's a lot of people who have, in my opinion, disrespected the system and a lot of corruption. Yeah, I'm saying it. I don't care. I don't need to hold a candle to all these people. There's a lot of corruption going on in US Soccer, and there's people inside US Soccer now trying to clean that up. And I think if you throw a Jesse Marsch in there, you have got a human being you can trust. As Mike pointed out, we know him very well. You've got a human being you can rely on who can push these youngsters forward, and someone who is well respected within the US Soccer system. So for me, it's not to stay in the Bundesliga, JJ, to answer your question. For me, it would be, yes, he would get an opportunity. For me, it's absolutely about US Soccer.